The missiles struck just before dawn. Within minutes, Iran's supreme leader was dead. But the strike didn't just kill one man. It shattered the most powerful family in Iran. Inside the compound that morning were members of the Khamenei family, people who had lived for decades behind walls of power, secrecy, and absolute protection. Those walls meant nothing now, because when the smoke cleared, multiple members of the ruling family were gone, and only one man remained in a position to inherit everything: his son, Mojtaba Khamenei. For years, he had operated in the shadows of Iran's power structure, quiet, patient, almost invisible. But with his father dead and much of the family destroyed, the man once known as the Shadow Prince suddenly stood at the center of Iran's future. And the question now facing the country was terrifyingly simple. Had the Islamic Republic just become a dynasty? The night everything changed began quietly. Tehran was calm. The supreme leader's compound sat behind layers of security that had protected him for decades. Guards patrolled the outer perimeter. Surveillance systems monitored every road leading toward the complex. Inside those walls, the Khamenei family believed they were safe. After all, this compound had been designed to withstand almost anything: assassination attempts, bombings, even military attacks. But the threat that came that morning was different, because it had been prepared for months. Intelligence agencies had tracked movements inside the compound. They knew who entered. They knew who stayed overnight. They waited for the moment when several high-value targets would be in the same place. When that moment came, the strike was launched. The missiles arrived without warning. The first explosion ripped through the compound's outer structures. Seconds later, more followed. Precise, coordinated, devastating. Within minutes, the heavily fortified complex turned into a burning ruin. Security forces rushed in. Emergency crews followed. But it quickly became clear that something far bigger had happened. This was not just an assassination. It was the destruction of an entire power structure. And as the fires continued to burn, officials began asking the only question that mattered: who survived? For decades, the Khamenei family lived in extraordinary secrecy. Ali Khamenei became Iran's supreme leader in 1989. From that moment on, his relatives became part of the most powerful network in the country. His wife, Mansoura Khojasteh-Bagherzadeh, 6 children, 4 sons and 2 daughters. Unlike many political families, they rarely appeared in public. Their lives were hidden behind security checkpoints and guarded compounds, but their influence was enormous. The supreme leader's sons built connections inside the Revolutionary Guard. They controlled access to business networks worth billions. They maintained relationships with powerful clerics and political figures. Over time, the family became something the Islamic Republic had once sworn to destroy: a dynasty. Officially, Iran rejected monarchy, but in reality, power had begun to concentrate around a single bloodline. And on the morning of the strike, much of that bloodline was inside the compound. The strike turned the compound into chaos. Buildings collapsed. Fires spread through residential sections of the complex. Rescue teams searched through debris for survivors. But as the hours passed, the reports grew worse. The supreme leader was confirmed dead. Several relatives had also been killed in the attack. Family members who had lived their entire lives behind guarded walls were suddenly listed among the dead. The compound that once symbolized the regime's power had become a mass casualty site. Inside Iran's leadership circles, panic began to spread, because the attack had done more than eliminate a leader. It had removed an entire layer of the country's power structure. And as officials tried to understand the scale of the destruction, one question became more important than any other. Had anyone from the inner family survived? The answer would determine the future of the regime. One man had, Mojtaba Khamenei. For years, he had operated almost entirely outside public view. He rarely appeared in official photographs. He held no formal position in government, but inside Iran's power structure, his influence was widely known. Mojtaba had spent years building relationships with commanders inside the Revolutionary Guard. He cultivated allies among senior clerics. He quietly positioned loyal figures throughout the political system. Many observers believed he had been preparing for one moment, the day his father could no longer rule. Iran's constitution does not allow hereditary succession. The supreme leader is supposed to be chosen by the assembly of experts, but political reality does not always follow constitutional theory. And Mojtaba's network of allies suddenly placed him in a powerful position. For the first time in Iran's modern history, the son of a supreme leader could realistically inherit the same role. The possibility created an immediate political crisis. The Islamic Republic had been founded in 1979 after the fall of the Shah. The revolution had promised to end monarchy forever. But now, the country faced a strange possibility. The son of the supreme leader replacing his father. Inside Iran's elite circles, factions quickly formed. Hardline commanders inside the Revolutionary Guard supported Mojtaba. They valued continuity, stability, and the networks they had built during his father's rule. Other clerics strongly opposed the idea. They argued that hereditary leadership would betray the principles of the revolution. The assembly of experts suddenly found itself under enormous pressure. Its decision would determine not just the next leader of Iran, but the future identity of the Islamic Republic itself. In the days after the strike, Iran entered a period of uncertainty. Power shifted quietly behind closed doors. Alliances formed. Negotiations began. Public statements remained vague, but inside the country's leadership circles, the struggle for power had already begun. Mojtaba Khamenei moved carefully, consolidating support among powerful allies. His opponents worked just as strategically. The Iranian people watched from the outside, unsure what would come next. Because the strike that killed the supreme leader had done more than remove a leader. It had shattered the structure that held the regime together. And the question now facing Iran was the same question that has shaped the fate of many revolutions. Would the Islamic Republic remain a republic? Or would it become the dynasty it once promised to destroy?